I don't think I've ever done an episode quite like this before. This review, that is, of the Pure Audio Project Trio10 Heil AMT. Now, it's a speaker review. It's an open baffle speaker, but I've never done one like this before because in my last review, just last week, of the Mola Mola Perca power amplifier, a big chunk of that review was using the Perca with these speakers, with the Trio10s. So you guys, if you watched the last episode, had a preview of what this episode is all about. So I'm not going to duplicate too much of that. But anyway, yes, it is an open baffle speaker, and some of you know that I use a Pure Audio Project Duet 15 as my reference speaker. And here's the thing, I thought going into this that they would sound more similar than different, but in fact, they sound quite different. Strange, because they're both similar size, similar price, open baffle, same company, and yet this one, the Trio10, sounds fast and clear and clean and transparent, far more so than the Duet 15. This one put me through some changes because I, as the reviewer here, I didn't know the end of the story until the end of the story. And I'll get to that, obviously, later on in this review. But yes, let's start with this. The Trio10 Heil AMT, it has that name because it's using an air motion transformer, an AMT, as the tweeter. But this is no ordinary tweeter, and it's not even like other air motion tweeters, air motion transformer tweeters that you see on so many products nowadays. The original patents ran out a while ago, the original Oscar Heil patents. So now a lot of companies make air motion transformers. But this one, on this speaker, this is kind of like the original model. It's made by a company in California, ESS, and ESS started making these drivers way back in 1972. Yes. It's an unusual tweeter because A, it's an air motion transformer, but unlike pretty much every other that I've ever reviewed, it's a dipole tweeter. There's just as much sound coming out of the back of the tweeter as the front. Yes, that's pretty well. And it's also a lot bigger and heavier. This tweeter weighs on its own 14 pounds. Yes, most of them tweeters weigh a pound or two or something, right? This one weighs 14 pounds because there's a lot of magnet in this tweeter, a lot of magnet. And it looks different, right? Now, those big wedges on the side, front and back, are the waveguide for the diaphragm itself, for the membrane itself. And that's a big deal because I don't think anybody else does it quite like that other than the Heil AMT. And those wedges serve as a waveguide that is used to, let's say, stabilize the movement of the diaphragm and also, because of that, lower the distortion of the diaphragm. And that was part of the original Oscar Heil design. So they've always been there all along. It's not a refinement of the design. The magnets, by the way, come from Germany. The actual the waveguides and the frame of the tweeter is made of plastic, and that comes from China. And the diaphragm itself is made by ESS in California. And they do the final assembly and testing and QC in California at ESS. So one other talking point for the Heil AMT is how far down it goes. Its frequency response extends down to 600 hertz. Most tweeters go down to 2K. Some of them only go down to 3K. But anyway, this one goes all the way down to 600 hertz. And that's where, obviously, the woofers come into play. There's two 10-inch woofers designed specifically for open baffle use. They are made exclusively for Pure Audio Project by Morel, the driver company. And they have 3-inch voice coils. These woofers can handle a lot of power. Now, one specification that I was surprised to see is that this is not a high sensitivity design. The Trio10 sensitivity number is 88 dB, which isn't super low, but it's a lot lower than the Duet 15s that I use every day. Their sensitivity number is 96 dB, so that's an 8 dB spread. So that means that the Trio10s tend to favor, but not exclusively, higher powered amplifiers. So yes, I use the Perca, 150 watts per channel into 8 ohms, 300 watts a channel into 4, so plenty of power there. But I also use the Gato PWR222 monoblocks, 250 watts a channel. I also use the little tiny the Mytek Brooklyn Power Amp Class D, 250 watts. But I also use the PassLabs XA25, 25 watt per channel amp, pretty good. And to try a really affordable amplifier, I also spent a wee bit of time with the Schiit Ager 2, which is only $899. It's a 30 watt per channel into 8, 50 watts a channel into 4. And that was pretty decent, yeah. So that's a possibility, especially in small rooms and for those of you that don't listen loud. Now, the thing that I noticed consistently with all these amplifiers is that this speaker is not at its best when played very, very quietly. Really late night listening sessions, the Duet 15 is much better. The Pure Audio Project Duet 15 is much better in that regard. Now, once you have these speakers really dialed in, you will hear an amazing soundstage, a true wall of sound. I mean, they're only 38 inches tall, but they sound big and spacious, and soundstage depth and focus is exceptionally good. I'm used to living with open baffle speakers and panel speakers, and yet this speaker's ability to sound 3D and spacious in that way, really, really special. Finish options for the panels, those 3 panels on the front baffle, are many. Here they are in all their splendor. And the price, the base price of this speaker is $5,900 a pair plus shipping. Pure Audio Project sells direct worldwide. Setup requirements are pretty straight ahead. They do need to be placed 3 feet, 1 meter or more away from the wall behind them. But the good news, you can put the Trio10s relatively close to the side walls, like a foot, 10 inches away from the side walls, and you will be okay, because they don't have a lot of horizontal dispersion. They fire straight ahead. But they do need that back wall placement. Now, as for the bass, they can really hit you. They're more dynamically powerful sounding than the Duet 15. The Duet 15 is more of a cruiser. It makes a lot of bass. It has a 15-inch woofer. But these two 10s, their low end has more kick to it, more impact than the Duet 15, and definition in that sense. But both speakers, Duet 15 and the Trio10, are high definition bass speakers. They don't get thick or muddy. No, they're very quick sounding on the bottom end. As for the mid-range, I was playing these 2 a cappella albums, both by the same band, The Persuasions, vocal only, no instruments, and I'm playing them over the Trio10s, and the soul, the presence of live human beings singing right there, complete, tonally right, dynamically believable. Everything about it was just falling into place. And I closed my eyes, and because I was present at these 2 sessions, recorded live to 2-track, no dynamic range compression, no equalization, and I'm listening to these men singing, and it was goosebump territory. This speaker does mid-range so well, and so colorless, so natural, nothing hyped about it, certainly not bright, certainly not too warm. It's just right there in the sweet spot in the middle. Then I played this 2 LP set, the Modern Jazz Quartet Last Concert. Now, actually, it wasn't their last concert. It didn't turn out to be that way. This is the last concert from the first phase of their career. And there was something about, well, the airiness of the whole presentation. But certainly for Milt Jackson's vibes, that kind of, the vibra harp just had that airy, spacious sound. Connie Kay's cymbals, each rivet, each little, so, yeah, it was right there. Gorgeous. John Lewis's piano. Tasty. Very, very tasty. Now, yes, when I did the comparison with the Duet 15, that speaker sounds more reserved than the Trio 10, more relaxed, less detail, less of that leading edge clarity on the top end especially. It's a softer, mellower presentation, very relaxed, and I love the Duet 15 for that. But in terms of the resolution aspects of recordings, oh yeah, the Trio 10 betters the Duet 15. Then I swapped out amplifiers and inserted the Mytek Brooklyn 250 watt per channel Class D amplifier. It's $2,500. And all of the things that I just described about the sound of the Trio, well, less so. It scaled back, it pulled back. But you know, I actually spent, 3 or 4 hours just listening to the Mytek Brooklyn. And that amp, for that kind of money, was really, it was very, very good. You know, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. Once I settled in, I wasn't mentally comparing the Perka. No, I just listened to the Brooklyn and thought, this sounds really nice. It's a sweetheart of an amplifier. Highly recommended. And if you're not comparing it to much more expensive amplifiers, it sounds really nice. It really does. And then, speaking of changing things, I did one more change and I inserted the Shit Ager 2. Now this is just 30 watts a channel into 8, 50 watts a channel into 4. And that one, I did feel the limitations of the power. Yes, it's a lower powered amplifier, but listening at, quieter levels up to medium-ish loud, it sounded fine. Also, very, very listenable. But that time I did feel like the speakers were asking for more. They wanted more power, more of that va-va-voom that these speakers are capable of, and just couldn't quite get there with the Shit Ager 2. But as noted earlier, in a small room, not played crazy loud, it's still a very sweet combination. Back on the Gato PWR 222 monoblocks, plenty of power. I was in the mood for some Miles Davis, but Miles Davis remixes by Bill Laswell. This album. There's a few volumes of this, but anyway, this is my favorite. And it's funky. It's got real texture and grind, and there's all these weird sounds. There's these drones. But Miles is playing his horn with a wah-wah pedal, so it's kind of Jimi Hendrix-ish. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of energy on this recording. Incredibly deep, but really clean bass, and I'm playing it loud. And then I played it louder, and I played it louder, and I was just sticking to this wall of sound, this detail, this texture, this energy, this funk. There's some serious funk going on. The rhythm and pace capabilities of these speakers to get you physically involved with the sound. You just can't sit there and listen. You want to move with music like this. And the Trio 10s could definitely get you up and moving. Sticking with the Miles Davis remixes, I decided to go back to the Duet 15s. And that jumpy, that nervous energy that's pulsing through these remixes, it was scaled back. It was softened a bit. That leading edge transients on the drums and the percussion and the horn, little less, a little more distance between me and the music. And going back to the Trio 10s, yeah, that jump factor was just lit up, and it's really, really exciting. Now, I know that some of you are thinking, okay, Steve, but what about nasty recordings? What about really bright recordings or really harsh recordings? How does the Trio 10 handle those? Well, it's going to let you hear how awful they are. It's not going to smooth over those edges. No, it's not that kind of speaker. If you want to smooth over the edges, I would direct your attention back to the Duet 15. That's a more easygoing, takes everything at stride kind of sound. It's not dull, but it doesn't have anywhere near that bite, that No, so anyway, the Trio 10 is going to let you hear the nasties better, or let's say worse than ever. So if that's your diet, listening to compressed music, this is not the speaker for you. Don't go there. Now you can ameliorate some of that by using softer sounding electronics. Like I felt when I put on the Past Labs XA25 on the Trio 10 Heil AMT. Oh yeah, it pulled it back. It fleshed it out. It made her a richer, warmer balance. Yeah, so that's one way to do it. But generally speaking, I was pretty happy with the sound of the Trio 10 playing less than perfect recordings. It depends on how far you go in the miserable and horrible land of compressed music. It's a matter of degree. I think I'm ready to tackle, so what do you really think of the pure audio project Trio 10 Heil AMT open baffle speaker? Wow, it's exhausting just getting the name of the speaker out. Anyway, I loved it. But here's the thing. Over the course of listening to this speaker, I spent a lot of time just listening to it in place of the Duet 15s. And I was starting to think maybe it's time to retire the Duet 15s and make the Trio 10 my new reference. So for the last go round of doing these comparisons, Trio 10 versus Duet 15, no, eventually I saw the wisdom that no, I'm more of a Duet 15 kind of guy. Because even though it's fun to play high res, I don't want to live with high res all the time. I actually prefer a more laid back, more fleshed out, warmer, fuller sound. I'm not chasing resolution. It's fun. It's definitely fun, and some people are. And if that's your thing, yes, the Trio 10 would be my recommendation. But at the end of the day, for me, day in, day out, I am more of a Duet 15 kind of guy. It's just an easier listen. It's a cruiser. That's it. It's just a cruiser. It cruises through everything. Smooth as butter. That's what you used to say in Brooklyn. Anyway, that is my report. And it is now time for, you know it, you love it, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Hey, Corey sent in these two pictures, and they are fantastic. Those speakers, they are Technics SB E200 horns with newly rebuilt and upgraded crossovers. Subwoofer, KEF KC62. The integrated amp, Yamaha AS1100. The streamer is a Blue Sound Node 2i. Turntable, Thorn's TD165 with the Origin Live Riga tone arm. Cartridge, Hana SL. Oh, and there's a step-up transformer in this system, Parks Audio Bougie. And I just want to make note here that I'm going to be doing an entire episode about step-up transformers and, to a lesser extent, head amps in a couple of weeks, I hope. Anyway, so look for that. Anyway, thank you, Corey, for these incredible pictures. All right, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg. I am the Audiophiliac. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel with reviews of really interesting products, and I will be doing some more affordable stuff shortly. There's a whole bunch of things in the queue. But interesting products at all price ranges. Yeah, please consider joining my Patreon to do so. Super easy to do. The address is on the screen. You could join for a month or two and split, and some people join and stick around for years. Whatever works for you, I'm happy with that. And speaking of happy, I can now say my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I truly do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.